Alright, it's been quite a few weeks, probably like 5 or 6 weeks. I've been ridiculously busy, so this is the first weekend I've really had free. I got a new vacuum. I just assembled it today. And I made sure that I figured out how this dust separating cyclone works. So let me show how this all works. So this is a brand new shop vac. I got a slightly more powerful one than the one I had last time. So this one has a motor capable of 6.5 horsepower. Although, if you do the math, I think that's like 35 amps or 30 amps or something like that. And there's no way this thing can pull that many amps on my household supplies. So I'm not exactly sure where that rating comes from, other than I'm certain that it's not actually achievable. Brand new filter. I'm going to run it with this cartridge filter. There's no way for this cartridge filter to fall off, which is how I destroyed the last one with a filter that fell off because it got so bogged down with dust. And also, I'm going to run my dust filtering cyclone the correct way. And the correct way is that there is so the vacuum pulls air in through the center here. And so the pickup on the inside of this thing is hanging down into the center of the cylinder. And there's quite a bit of gap between the pickup and the walls. And so it's causing a cyclone that flings the dust to the outside. And the only way the dust can get picked up is if it somehow migrates into the center, which it should be spinning fast enough that it doesn't do that. So then I've got my hand-cut nozzle that hopefully doesn't pick up very many pieces, although last time it picked up quite a few. But then I've got the mesh, the netting on the inside to prevent any pieces from actually getting pulled into this chamber. And then of course I've got my vacuum here. This is my household dust vacuum, which is actually how I clean all these other vacuums with this thing. And it's there to pick up dust. So there's quite a bit of grit still left in this bowl from last time when I realized my vacuum had failed. So I'm going to start up this vacuum, then I'm going to start up this vacuum, and I'm going to get to it, and hopefully it works really well this time, and hopefully I don't do any damage to this, and hopefully this works well. So here goes. Oh no! Apparently there's a lot of grit in this tube that hasn't made it over my head. But this is working really well. Wow, that's a lot. Extremely well, actually. I've gotten almost all the grit out of it without very many issues. Pieces keep on getting pulled up into this, which is pretty annoying, but other than that, I think it's working really well. And this core is slowly emptying with grit as it gets tumbled around, although it's going to take a while. But there's not that much. Well, you know, there's like an inch of grit in the bottom of this thing, which is not so bad. I'm going to keep going. Well, this is working really well. There's still a teeny tiny bit of grit in the bottom, and I'm vacuuming it up just fine, but the thing is the pieces themselves, you know, hold quite a bit of grit, and they have to get turned over for all the grit to come out. And so the core still has some grit in it, and I still see some pieces in here that have grit in them. And it takes, you know, quite a few minutes for all the grit that's trapped inside the pieces to fall to the bottom and then get vacuumed out. And when there's grit in the bottom, they keep on continue scooping it up. So it's the last little bit of grit takes a while. But the thing is before I started vacuuming, the last little bit of grit took hours. Because I had to just screen the pieces and shake them in the screen, and it's what made the mess, and it's what was all the manual labor. So the fact that I'm going to be able to get all the last little bit of grit out of this in just a few minutes of vacuuming is just wonderful. So I'm going to get at it for another couple minutes, and then I'll see how things are going. Well, it's no more grit that I visibly see in the bottom, which is great. So, yeah, just like tiny bits of grain here or there. I mostly can't see the grains. I can only see that they catch the light and sparkle slightly. Which means there's hardly any left in there. This still has a tiny bit in it. You can hear it rattling. That's like, I don't know, like 10 grains or something. It's like tiny. This has nothing in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave the tumbler open and running. There's no real need for this anymore because there's not a lot of grit in it left. So I'm going to leave the tumbler open and running for about 10 minutes. And that's going to shake loose any last remaining coarse grit. And then I'm going to vacuum it out, and then I'll be ready to put the fine grit in. So I'm going to resume the video after I've run this for about 10 minutes. Alright, it's been about 10 minutes, maybe a little bit less, but no additional grit really fell into the bottom here, so there's just a few sparkles here and there. One option would be to take all the parts out, boil them, which causes the nylon to expand, and any grit that's stuck between two nylon surfaces, when they expand, it can come loose. But, you know, I just don't think it's that necessary. And then the problem after, I have to dry them off after I do that, and that takes a long time. And I just don't think it's that necessary. So I'm going to do, a couple minutes, or probably less, of vacuuming here to get the last little bit of grit out. And then I have the smaller tumbler with the fragile corners to do next. So here goes. Alrighty. Pretty good. So, a bit of dust buildup on the post here. Okay, I'm going to get this tumbler out of the way and put the other one out. Smashed my finger between a tumbler. Okay. See if the camera can see that. Yep, it can. Great. Okay. Well, first thing I'm going to do here, vacuum this top part off. Well, it's working well, but the problem is that picking up that much grit that quickly causes a huge amount of static electricity buildup, and I don't know what this thing is on my hose, but I'm just getting like constant shocks, like static electricity buildup shocks. I can feel the hair on the back of my arm start to raise up. So I'm going to try to pull up grit slower than that so that it can dissipate the static. I don't know if there's another answer to that other than maybe like putting a metal strap around here and connecting it to a ground and just trying to ground everything. But I haven't really explored or experimented with that yet. There's not enough dust going in the air that I'm concerned about any sort of aerosolized dust explosion. So it is what it is. It's very uncomfortable, but yeah, here it goes anyways. really well. Didn't give very many shocks, going slower, and got all the grit out. I did notice actually that this nozzle is extremely bad at picking up grit from the very bottom. Apparently the grills or the I don't know exactly what the fins or whatever that I cut into it allow it to pull all the air from the side, and very little air comes from the bottom, which makes it really bad at picking up the grit on the very bottom. And that's the first time that I've ever done it in a tumbler with so few parts that I could actually see how bad it was at it. So I definitely need I probably need two different nozzles. One for picking up the bulk of the grit in the beginning, and then another one for picking up the grit in the bottom that doesn't have these, or maybe I could just tape them up or something like that, or have something that slides over it. Who knows? But yeah, this is really good. It's it's pretty much coarse grit free. These pieces can't trap any coarse grit. There's nothing there to trap coarse grit. So it's one of the reasons why it was so easy. There is still grit stuck in the hose though, so I need to start that up and get some of it out. No pieces in the mesh. This worked well. There's actually quite a bit of grit all around the bottom here that I'm going to have to vacuum up later. That's just going to be standard cleanup. So, I'm going to take a look at there's probably stuff in this hose, so I have to be careful here. Don't want to make a mess. Whew. Yeah, there's still a decent amount of grit in this hose too. So the bucket is about a quarter of the way full. Kind of heavy, but there's a lot of grit in there. Goes up to oh my gosh, static electricity buildup is pretty high too. Okay, and I want to see what the inside of the vacuum looks like. Oh, this is great. Ah, this is fantastic. The filter barely got dirty. This is amazing. And there's very little in here. Oh, it's so nice. So, the dust separating cyclone just worked amazingly well. I'll probably be able to do 2 or 3 full vacuumings before I have to take that filter off and wash it. That's great. Okay. So the only disappointing thing then, I guess, is that there's a lot of nylon powder. Ooh, tons of nylon powder that is in the coarse grit still. I still need to find a way of getting all the nylon powder out of the coarse grit. I have an idea, but it would be horribly messy, and I don't want to do that to my neighbors. The basic idea is to set up a box fan that blows at a low velocity, and then pour this through the air blowing stream into some bin or something like that, with the idea that the coarse grit will fall through the air without moving too much, and all the fine stuff will just blow away. But that would probably cover my neighborhood in just the nastiest nylon, fine nylon powder. So I don't want to do it. Alrighty, so what I need to do now is I need to get the fine grit into the tumbler here. The small one, and then the large one. So I'm going to try to get my... Well, let's do this. Alrighty. And I gotta find my fine grit bucket. Here it is. And something to scoop. Oh boy. This fine grit bucket is extremely heavy. Like, I don't know, like 80 pounds or something. Okay. Oh, I hate fine grit. It just floats away like smoke. That's really nice. Alrighty. Well, I guess I could probably use a little bit more. I usually polish pieces in fine grit for between 1 and 3 days. The fine grit wears the pieces extremely rapidly. Like, probably 5 times as fast as the coarse grit, maybe more. And it causes them to wear slightly unevenly too, actually. So that's the limiting factor. Otherwise, I just do it in fine grit the whole time, but they wear unevenly. Okay, so that tumbler is in place. Now for the big one. When this tumbler gets fully loaded with fine grit, it weighs about 70 pounds, which becomes hard to move, hard to do anything with. It's the other reason why I hate taking the bowl off and putting it in my kitchen. The weight of the thing. Okay, well, here I'm gonna get going. Oh boy, that's not good. Well, I'm pretty pleased with the rotation rate, considering how overloaded the tumbler is, and how much faster it is than what the Coarse grip was doing. So I think it's good. I think I can get the lid on this thing and then let it go for a day. I will check on it in about 24 hours and decide if it needs another 12 or 24, however much it needs. But it should just be a couple of days before the parts are done in the grit, and then the only thing left is the porcelain spheres. And that's always a pretty interesting process. So I think we're good. I think everything went really smoothly tonight. I'm very glad that I got the new vacuum that's stronger, and I got the dust cyclone working really well. Well, by connecting it the right way, basically. But yeah, everything seems to be good. So I'll have an update in maybe a day or 2 or 3, depending on how busy I get and depending on how these things wear. But until then, they're going to be going. Thanks for watching.